Okay, so you're welcome to today's session. And then what we'll be doing today under Econ 215, the economy of Ghana, is simply the agricultural system in Ghana. So we'll be looking at the agricultural sector in Ghana. So without much waste of time, we just go straight to today's slide. And kindly note this, probably if you have any questions for me, just do well to forward them to the page, okay? Or check out your admins for the KES page, your colleague admins, okay? Forward them to them, and then probably it would help you sort it out, okay? And do well to do the assignments too, okay? That's the test, I mean, okay? Best wishes for the vacation. So today we're looking at the agricultural sector, the Econ 215. And then the objectives for this study is to first identify the basic features of the agricultural sector activities in Ghana. And then also we look at the importance of agriculture to economic activities in Ghana. How has the agricultural sector been of impact to the nation Ghana? Okay. And then we also look at the problems and challenges faced in the agricultural sector. And then we outline some policies or decisions taken by the government, okay, to help solve these problems and to improve upon the agricultural sector. So I won't be saying everything. Probably you know that this meeting is and this record is supposed to be on average 20 minutes. So I would encourage you to read beyond this. Okay. So first of all, we want to look at the various sectors of the agricultural sector. So there are five main sectors or subsectors of the agricultural sector. And the first one we have is the crops other than cocoa sector or subsector, which is 60% of Ghana's agricultural sector. Remember, everything we're doing here is basically Ghanaian statistics, okay? And then we have the second subsector, which is the cocoa subsector, which is 14%. And then we have the livestock subsector, which is 7.3%. The fisheries subsector, which is 6.2%, and the forestry subsector, which is 12.5%. Okay, so other things apart from cocoa like cereal, maize, and all those ones can be found under the first one, that is the crops subsector, which is 60% of Ghana's Agric GDP contribution. Okay, and then we have the cocoa subsector contributing 14%. And then we have the livestock subsector, the sheep, the cattle, all of those 7.3%, and the fisheries, okay, our fishes and other seafoods, okay, 6.2%, and the forestry, our timber and so on, okay, 12.5%. So these are the contributions they give, okay, to Ghana's GDP from the agriculture sector alone, okay. So now I would encourage you to take your time, go through the slide I sent to the page, the official you guess, that is the official you guess slide. Go through that. This is just a summary to explain them to you to help you understand them easily, because I think you've not yet been on campus. Okay, that's for this series. So just go back again after listening to this, read the slides, scrutinize the ISA PDF to as well. You can find that in the KES library, and then just go through them, read, just know the statistics and some other deep details about Ghana's agricultural sector. Okay. So first of all, we want to look at the features of Ghana's agricultural sector. Now, the first thing we look at is that the agricultural production in Ghana is rain-fed, which is irregular in pattern. Okay, so this constrains our production of mini crops, okay, to once a year. So we don't have effective irrigation system to boost our productivity. So it is rain-fed, and in seasons where there are not rain, certain crops cannot spring forth. So we make losses in those periods. So this is one of the feature which is actually not good, okay, in certain states. Now another one is Ghana's agriculture is dominated by small-scale production enterprises. So this simply means that when you look into the agricultural system in Ghana, we have large farms owned by individuals or companies, but we have less of that under proportionate consideration. Okay, so most of the farms, multiples of the farms are actually minute farms or smaller scale farms that are being cultivated or owned by small scale farmers. Okay, and the next one we have The system of cultivation of the predominantly small-scale farms is described as traditional with respect to technology and methods used. So it's traditional. They don't use the modern technology for productivity. So you find them using the hoes, cutlass, and all of those old methods, okay, pruning and all of those old methods. Okay, so these are some of the features of Ghana's agricultural sector. And the land preparation is accomplished by slash and burn methods. So for them to prepare the land for new set of cultivation, they have to burn the whole land, and this is how it is done, a feature. Okay, so we get to look at some of the challenges when we proceed. Okay, why these are also going to be challenging. So let's note that these are the features. Another one is shifting cultivation and bush fallow have remained the dominant systems for natural restoration of soil fertility. Now, this also has an effect, okay, but we'll look at that when we get to challenges. But let me just throw a bit light on this. You realize that in periods wherein lands under shifting cultivation, you lose some lands and to become fruitful, okay, for a period of time before you come back and plant them. So you shift from that land and move to another land. You leave the other land there for it to, regenerate in fertility again. So the space of time of leaving that land to become fertile again, okay, is like you are wasting a lot of productivity for that period of years or the period of months. Okay, so this is also one of the challenges. Okay, so just know that this is one of the features too. So another one is mixed cropping predominates the crop layouts in the field. Okay, and then the use of modern inputs such as fertilizers, pesticides, improved seeds, and mechanization is not yet widespread. Not everyone uses the modern inputs, the modern fertilizers that have been used and certified. Some people use the normal indigenous old style way of making the land fruitful. And then we have simple cutlasses, knives, and hoes are the predominant tools for cultivation and harvesting. So this is a feature. And then the farming activities are highly labor intensive, supplied by the farm households. So it's not, let's say, backed by technology that makes the work easily done. Okay, hard labor, weeding, cutting of many hard labor. Okay, so these are some of the features. Okay, and then the use of institutional creditors load, either because they are either because this credits are unavailable or collateral requirement is not attainable. So we know that most of the um, farming um, companies or whatever we have here are actually small scale. Okay, so some of them may not be able to provide collateral to get loans from banks. Okay, we cannot meet up with what the bank requires. Okay, and also some of them may not be given because the banks may not be willing to give them. You get it? Or some banks may not give for those fields. So that is it. So now let's look at the contribution of the agricultural sector to the Ghanaian economy. So the first one is its contribution to GDP. Now, the agricultural sector is the major contributor to Ghana's GDP for a period of time now, but as you move on, you get to realize that that has been taken over by the service sector. Okay, so in 1980s, the sector's contribution to GDP averaged 55%, wherein it contributed most among the other major sectors, which are the industrial and also the service sector. Okay, but apparently, we see that it has declined as of 2014 to 22% contribution to GDP. So now I think it's even further down. So that's, I think, 18 point something percent. So probably you can check that out in your research. And just know that apparently the major contributing sector to Ghana's GDP is the service sector. Okay, so contribution to employment. So we realize that the Greek sector also contributes to employment. Okay, and then the agriculture sector has absorbed on average 60% of Ghana's labor force since 1999, but now as of 2014, 50%. So you can check out the average for 2020 for 2019. Okay, and do further for 2020. So let's note the major contributions: contribution to GDP, contribution to employment, and contribution to the provision of food in the economy. Okay, that's the supply of food, both to the urban areas and also to the rural areas. Now, also, the agric sector also produces raw materials, okay, that are being used by the industries, okay, for the production of certain end products like textiles, like clothing, and also soap manufacturing, okay. And then also the agric sector contributes to Ghana's foreign exchange. Okay, so we export some of these products like cocoa and timber and so on. Okay, and also we're able to use the agric sector to produce import substituted food and raw materials. Okay, so things that we can actually import from abroad. In the agric sector, we can produce such kind of things here, and then it decrease our extent or the cost of our imports. So we don't tend to import those things, but we produce them in the economy. So let's now look at the constraints or the challenges of the agricultural sector. First of all, the agricultural sector has a low level of land productivity in Ghana, and that can be attributed to poor farming practices such as shifting cultivation. So I explained this earlier on. So while we shift from one plot of land, for example, to another plot of land, just to make one reserve and to improve its fertility again before we come back again and then we cultivate on it. So the space of time wasted to improve the fertility of that land, okay, under this means of cultivation, that's the shifting cultivation. Okay, it's just like a waste of productivity. Okay, so assuming we had improved measures for this cultivation, like you can realize that over that space of time of waiting, we would have been producing and increase the productivity from the agricultural sector. Okay, so that is a challenge. And then also physically exhausting agricultural practices are still largely the norm. The hand hoe is still a widespread tool in use. So the efficiency of using the cutlass, hoes, and all of those traditional old ways of cultivation is not as effective as the modern methods. Okay, so this actually is a challenge to the agricultural sector. Again, the land tenure system, which is largely traditional, with the use of usufruct rights predominating. Now, the problem of this is that these rights do not allow small-scale farmers to invest in long-term improvement of this quality. So with the land tenure system, you realize that, let's say in the rural areas, farmers have, let's say for example, farmers have the right to use a land for a period of time and no more have the right again. So we can't use that land to take loans for long-term loans, you get it? So in this case, there is a challenge or there's a problem that you may not have right over that land in the next years to come. Okay, so it hinders them from getting assistance from banks for their cultivation activities. So the poor land tenure system. And then we also have the farmer education. Also, most of the farmers, which are the small scale farmers, most of them are illiterate. You get it. So their means to get quick access to the modern trends in agricultural productivity is actually low. So they keep on using the old methods they actually used to, or let's say they know. Okay. So the next one we look at inadequate extension services. Extension service personnel to farmer ratio is 1:30,000 farmers. Very bad. Okay. So what extension service personnel do is that they teach the farmers or carry important information to the farmers on the new means to make productivity more efficient and educate them on certain things about their farming activities. Okay. So just mainly to help them gain access to the trends and the farming informations that are important to increase productivity. Okay, so in Ghana here we could see that the extension services ratio to farmers is 1:3,000, which is also very poor. And this is a challenge to the productivity of the agricultural sector. So all of these are reasons why over the periods of time, the agric sector have fallen from its contribution to GDP. Okay, now we have the service sector at the top. Okay, so another challenge is the weather conditions in Ghana causes production risk and uncertainties. Okay, so the weather conditions, the dry seasons that is assisted by sometimes and bushfires and their losses made, and also the unreliable rainfall patterns that limit the cultivation of many crops once a year. So these actually challenges being faced too as well. So I've talked about the bushfires too, and also let's look at farm theft is also widespread and both livestock and crops are stolen from farms and communities. Now, the problem here is that there is no insurance scheme to cover every losses that result from farm theft, okay, or from bushfires. So there is no insurance scheme to cover all of this. So this is a very big challenge. So when people have losses or challenges due to farm theft or bushfires, they don't have any insurance scheme to cover those losses and to reproduce again. So they have to bear the cost and find means to reduce by themselves again. So we also look at the fact that the storage losses from farm produce, particularly food crops, are quite high, estimated to be between 15 to 30%, okay, of of the farming output. So you see the extent of losses that are being incurred due to bushfires and also farm theft. I should tell you how much cost it takes off from the agriculture sector, because it's a big challenge. In the next one, we look at the transportation problems. We have poor roads for the transportation of these outputs. Okay, either there are no roads at all, or the roads are poor, and we have a lot of losses too as a result of this. Okay, so now let's look at this. The availability of credit to farmers is inadequate. So we don't have inadequate access to credit or to loans from banks or financial institutions to help farmers purchase crops, purchase certified seeds or whatever, or certified fertilizers or other means to improve their productivity. Okay, the access to these loans or credit is actually very poor. Okay, so that is a challenge. And probably in some cases it could be that there's either no loans available for that particular investment, or probably the collateral requirements to access these loans are very, very, very high, so the farmers cannot do that. So the next one we look at is some of the policy initiatives and we end here. Okay. So first of all, we want to look at the buffer stock management. So the government realized this, and then this is policy initiatives from 2012 to this. Okay. So sorry for the network problem. We proceed now. So these are some policy initiatives. So the first one, we have the buffer stock management. So as I said earlier on, that this was actually implemented. These are policies from 2012 to present. Okay. So we want to look at some of the initiatives or decisions the government takes into consideration to improve the performance of the agricultural sector. Now, first of all, we look at the buffer stock management. Second, we look at fertilizer subsidy. Third, we look at livestock and fisheries development. Again, I would like you to make researches on irrigation development and mechanization systems. You can find them in your slides and then also in your ESA textbook. That's in your ESA PDF from the KES library and the reading materials. And then also we look at the planting for food and jobs. So this will be your assignment. You make research on that. Okay. So I'll explain three of them to you to make our time fit into the average period. So first of all, the buffer stock management and its aim. So the aim of the buffer stock management, okay, so simply when we talk about buffer stock management, it's simply a way um, to reserve food, okay, from being wasted. And one of the purposes that is to keep the prices stable. So let's say the government decides that when productivity goes so high, so we have excess productivity. Now this becomes a way of saying excess supply. Now, when we have excess supply, the supply exceeds demand, the prices of this food or end product is going to go down. So the amount of income generated is going to reduce, okay, per estimation. So in this case, the government takes some of the excess supply and keeps them in warehouses, okay. So when things are actually, so when the prices of these outputs go high as a result of lower output, okay, now in this case we have less supply, so we see that demand is going to be more than supply, so that's excess demand, that's going to be excess demand. Okay, now in cases like this, prices go high. So for the government to come in and to keep prices stable, they release some of these outputs from the warehouses. So we have a stabilized price setting. Okay, so in this case, let's look at what the buffer stock in Ghana here is all about. So the National Food Buffer Stock Company, the NAFCO, was established to hold security buffer stocks and to intervene in the market to ensure competitive prices at all times. So at all times, the prices should be stable, okay, competitive. Because if the prices are not stable and competitive, it implies that either the farmers are going to um, lose the potential, that is, lose the confidence of producing more, okay, that morale or that incentive to increase production is going to disappear, okay, and this will lead to losses too as well. So the company acquired and rehabilitated two warehouses for the storage of grains. Now we could see that as of 2011, 6,949 metric tons of paddy rice and 416 metric tons of maize were purchased and stored, okay, in the warehouses. So these are going to be used in the subsequent years, which already passed. Okay. So just you can chew this, okay, in the normal way. Like I know you understand, just chew it. Let it be in your mind. Okay. Now the next one, let's look at, so I believe you know everything. At least you have a brief summary and the buffer stock management. I've explained this well. If you don't really get it, just forward back or go previous, listen to it and come back again and continue. Okay. So now the next one, let's look at the livestock and fisheries development. Now, one of the areas, no, these are all subsectors. Okay, the first one for the buffer stock, we're dealing with, that is, we're dealing with Muslims. We're dealing with the cereals. Okay, that's the greens. Okay, now there's another subsector. Okay, which is the livestock subsector, and the fishes also is another subsector. Now, what did the government do to improve the subsectors? Let's look at the first one. Now, we have the government in 2012 made available 1,700, that's 170,000 metric tons of fertilizer to some 300,000 farmers. So just have this in mind. And in addition, 20,000 kilograms of improved seeds of maize, rice, and soybean were distributed in 2012. Now, the average cost of a bag of fertilizer was 16 Ghana cedis as of 2011. So this should tell you the expenditures that the government incurred. Then the program faced implementation challenges in 2012, for which new security features were introduced. So there were some, let's say, corruption activities and also, shall I say, challenges, okay, in the distribution of these fertilizers, and to make sure that there are no unuseful losses made, there was the introduction of new security measures like the use of farmers' passbooks, daily record sheets, and also the quota system for regions and districts. Okay, so this is dealing with the provision of fertilizers, okay, and improved seeds and also maize seeds, okay, and also rice, soybean, and soybean to improve the farming activities, okay, in the cereal subsector, okay, and also in the crop subsector. I mean, so now let's look at the livestock and fisheries development mainly here. So now for the livestock and fisheries development, we find out that the government began the construction of cold stores at Nyanyano and Kumanchi and Apam in the central region and Alf Asini, New Takrade, Shama and Sekendi in the western region. Now they were creating more cold stores in these regions to help increase the number of livestock and fisheries productivity. Okay, so about 11.07 hectares of ponds and 192 cages were constructed as part of the efforts to promote and develop aquaculture and cage culture. Okay, so just keep this in mind. And then to improve the performance of local breeds of livestock, the livestock farmers were also supplied with 2,584 livestock of various improved species in the northern, upper east, upper west, Bronga, Full, Ashanti, and Volta regions, so 6 regions. Just keep them in mind. And then in addition, 35,000 cockerels were distributed to 1,750 farmers in 25 districts as at, at subsidized prices to improve the protein intake of Ghanaians. So this particular one was to improve the protein intake of Ghanaians. So they were distributed at subsidized prices, meaning the government didn't pay everything, but they paid at least a portion of it, okay, a tangible portion of it. Okay. So just keep all of these statistics in your mind. Now, for further reading, I would encourage you to access your slides that I dropped on the page. Okay. And then also do well to visit the KES library to find the ISA PDF for 2019. But I assure you that when you're coming for your next academic year, you'll be given a new ESA textbook that will be prescribed for you guys to buy. Okay, so you can get them at the ESA library or maybe the school's library. Okay, but for now you can check some of the data that has been kept in stock in the KES library to boost your understanding. Okay, and prepare for the quiz session on Friday. And do what to read all the links I've dropped on the page, all the lecture and records and everything. And wish you all the best.